Hi, this is Kendra from Pencil and Pigment, and today I'm going to be discussing and doing a little bit of what I've been working on for the month of July, which is World Watercolor Month. I am following Doodle Wash's prompt list. Today is currently Saturday, July 19th, 2025, and the prompt is perform. So I'm not doing flightless birds. Oh gosh, this is such a mess. It's very mixed media. Yeah, I'm gonna do a bird that performs. So I'll probably do like a mockingbird or something because their songs are such a performance. So this is what I've done. I took my roll, and I have a Strathmore 500 series, which is mixed media, and I laid it out. Oh, there's search and rescue. Hold on. Sorry about that. I live in the forest, so whenever there's a helicopter going by, it's our search and rescue. So shout out to our first responders. We appreciate you, especially in our forest living. So what I did is I took my huge roll of Strathmore paper and I laid it out and I taped it off. Now the only way to get this paper to lay flat when you buy huge rolls of paper is to wet it and then let it dry. So as I put on a layer of water, I added some gold gouache. This is a Holbein's gouache, their artist grade, and this is the Brilliant Gold. All the products I'm talking about will be linked in the description box below. I will throw up photos of my process because I didn't record it. I don't know that that's super interesting. And I only did this sort of sparkly, gosh, I don't even know if you can see this on camera. I only did this light shimmer on one side. So I'm going to be binding it in a very unique way when I'm done, but it's gonna flow, it's gonna work. So this is an example of what I've been doing. I've been watercoloring trees and then inking the birds, okay? And it's all different trees and it's all different birds. So you get a real sense of sort of what we're working with here. Some of these trees are specific to the birds, some of them aren't. I'm not gonna show you all because again, the first weekend in August, I'll do a sketchbook tour, but you get what I'm doing. So products I'm using. I'm only using 4 colors for my watercolor. These are all the Daniel Smith. This is Lunar Black, Lunar Earth, Cobalt Teal Blue, and then I'm using Da Vinci's Burnt Umber. These are all very granulating. They're all light fast. I'm using these two to make a nice green that's very granulating and kind of pulls apart a little bit. It's very interesting and I like it. I have a palette I created a while back, gosh, that was all granulating light fast colors, and there's my swatch card for it. But I never really filled it. I just used straight from the tube. So this is what I'm working with. It looks a mess, but understand that like needs messed, and this is just how it looks right now. Artist life. Nothing looks absolutely Pinterest perfect. It's just, that's not realistic. I've been using a plastic palette. I haven't been using my porcelain one just because my porcelain one, when I put tons of tube colors on there, I end up using it throughout the year and using it for other projects and stuff. And this one I'm going to be using up entirely for this. This is a little Maramu Potter's Pink. I didn't end up using that. But, okay. And you can see how I've been creating my green. All right. So, I need to create a tree, and that's what I'm going to watercolor. I have a pipette. I have a baby food jar. We are not working with, like, we just want a watercolor here, folks. What I can tell you about watercoloring and trying to build up and get some of these darker values is watercolor is a layers game. So this is at least 3 layers, and in here's 4 layers. So if you're going for opacity, or you're trying to, let me find something maybe, create a sense of realism. Let me find one that looks like very specific. If you want like a really realistic, strong value, and you want the value range, you want the lights, you want the darks, it's gonna be 3 layers, okay? You're gonna wanna let a layer dry and kind of, you have to figure out, and this is what practice is for, and this is why drawing and creating and painting challenges are so important, is that you get a sense of how much water you need for how you do your layers and what you want your ending layers to look like. So when it comes to watercolors, you have to practice. You have to practice, you have to get a feel for the colors, a feel for the tools, everything you're working with, the medium you're creating on, the surface, like how much cellulose, wood pulp, is it 100% cotton, watercolors you're using, the water you're using. I'm just using really budget brushes. I like the Winsor Newton Cotman. I'm using a 3 round. Then I have a Virtuoso, which is a 0 flat. So the 0 flat has been helping me with really fine texture lines and stuff. So I'm only using 2 brushes, pipette, and then I have this guy. So for my inking, I'm using the Rotring Isograph, and then I'm using an ink I just purchased. It's a brown, it covers a lot of surfaces. It's the Koh-i-Noor. I'll throw up a photo. And this is the 0.5, so technical pen, and then I'm just filling this guy here. I'm basically, essentially, doing a layer or 2 of watercolor, inking my bird, and then going back over and doing another layer or 2 of watercolor. So things are drying as I'm creating and moving around the space. So that's kind of this project. That's what it looks like. I'm trying to make sure that I'm getting things, you know, fairly correct. The smaller birds, I'm doing at least 2. There is a method to my madness. There is a little bit of, as I move through this drawing challenge, I'm making sure that there's a curation of it. So it'll be like 1 solid big bird and then 2 tiny ones, 1 big, 2 tiny, and it'll alternate throughout this sketchbook. So I am taking a thoughtful process. Again, I'm not doing any of the flightless birds. I am doing some things where I'm like, I'm not sure if people know this bird does that. So I did a goose the other day, and this project's also requiring some research on my part, some things I'm just not familiar with. There's so much about birds I don't know, and I love the subject matter, that I find it all really, really fascinating. So this is definitely a lot of the brown, and I might need a little bit more water. I didn't realize that some Canadian geese in Tennessee don't do their nests on the ground. They've been building their nests in trees. I know. So everything you think you know about a bird works until it doesn't. So those birds have been, I don't know, I think predators in different situations, they have been building their nests higher. And so some of the information like I'm reading and learning about is just fascinating. And I'm trying not to fall too far down the research hole, because I could just spend my entire time researching and never get to the actual creating, but it's so fascinating. Birds are one of like my favorite things to draw, to paint, to create. I did a bunch of watercolor birds in February, so that's why I'm not watercoloring them now. I'm just working on watercolor trees and branches and stuff, which is a subject matter that I haven't spent a lot of time watercoloring. So it's been a fascinating learning experience. Also, in doing this mixed media and making sure that, you know, I'm inking the birds, it's making it a little quicker. Like it's a little quicker process for me, which I didn't know. Like I never know going into a month what it's gonna look like, how crazy a thing is gonna be. And so I'm always like, nah, it'll be fine. I'm really glad I didn't decide to watercolor the entire thing and have like a 3-hour day project, because these are taking anywhere from like an hour to an hour and a half. And that's totally fine. That's fitting into my schedule nicely. I apologize for all the background noise. It's the weekend. My neighbors have louder cars. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. July's just been bananas with all the different things going on in our house. So it's been really nice and relaxing just to do these little tiny things and not have to worry so much about bigger projects and the time it takes for some of that stuff. I'm gonna mix my umber with my black and get a darker value here. Add a little more water here. Anyway, that's, I mean, I would love to do some watercolor tutorials and teach some watercolor things, but the biggest takeaway is you have to practice. Like watching all the people talk about their process and how they do stuff. Yeah, there's some certain rules or some certain things that are more helpful than others, but Ultimately, it's up to you, what you already own, what you like, what you enjoy. And then it just comes down to practice. Practice and practice and practice. Years and years and years. I started back up. I took a break because we had 3 kids less than 3 years apart. And that's a lot when they're little. I started back up in 2017. And I will say that I started with July, with World Watercolor Month. And I did a 5-minute watercolor challenge. And it was so quick and so fast. And one of the joys of watercolor is that the cleanup's super fast. You don't have to worry. Like if your paint's dry, you can still rehydrate them and reuse them and keep going. Acrylic's not like that. Once it's dry, it's done. The other thing is the cleanup's really fast with brushes. If you have to stop everything and you can't clean something right away, you know, you have to come back to it in an hour, you haven't destroyed your brushes. So that's something else that you may want to be mindful of when you're thinking about different painting and different projects. Because I realize that I love acrylic painting. I love it a lot. You can get the transparency of watercolor when you thin it out. You can get the opacity if you keep it as is, but the cleanup takes too long. And things can get destroyed, and I don't always have the time. The time or the inclination, and things can't sit with acrylic. You have to clean it right away. And since I don't even own specific acrylic brushes, I only own watercolor brushes at this point. I use my watercolor brushes for the little acrylic work I do, which is totally fine. Know the rules so you can break them. But yeah, I just have to make sure that when I build in, okay, so I have an hour to create or I have a half an hour to create, I need to make sure that the last, 5 to 10 minutes is for cleanup. And that's just something to be mindful of. So, yeah. And I'm going to draw the birds in here somehow with the ink. I probably won't do the inking in this video. I could do the inking in another one next weekend if you want to see the inking portion. See how I sort of try and figure out negative space. Because I'm not really inking hyper realistically with the birds either. I'm just relaxing into this. And that's like what the bulk of me filling sketchbooks and doing sketchbook challenges and drawing challenges and stuff. It's just a really relaxing way for me to practice, make sure I'm using a bunch of my supplies that I wouldn't normally use with just plain commissions. Yeah. And it's just something for me. And it's a very relaxing meditative process that I enjoy a lot. So, yeah, I'll have some bendy branches. That's the thing about nature is very wonky. So you don't want everything to look perfect either. Like that's not helpful to your illustration, to your drawing. And I think I'm going to draw little tiny brown buds on here. I won't do any green on this one. Some of them have green, some of them don't. I played around with it. They're all going to be a little bit different, a little bit variant. I'm here for it. I love it. I love watercolor. I would say, living in the Northern Hemisphere, watercolor's better. I can let things dry naturally without worrying about blowing the paint around with a blow dryer, but this has been one of the coldest Julys we've ever had. And literally our weather forecast is AM fog, PM clouds, like every day. So I've been in sweaters and sweatshirts and hoodies like all month long. It's been ridiculous. Today's been one of the first sunny days in like a week or two. So our dog says hi. Hi, baby. Yeah, it's just been really, really cold, which is super jarring for how I normally like spend our July. And we've been trying to get like garden projects done and stuff. So painting nature, like hanging out in nature, it's been a lot of fun. But it's been freaking cold. It's been so cold. So you see me in my July videos that I'm wearing like long sleeves or something, don't be alarmed. It's just too cold. So yeah, we're embracing it. And this will have to dry, and then I will do a second coat that is more of the lunar black for shadow and highlight. So you need a strong shadow with all this brown to really denote the sense of realism. And then I have to decide, like, where do I want my light direction to be coming from? Is it coming from the top? Is it coming from the side? How much time do I have to work on something like that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do top down. So the bottom edges of this will have a little bit of black that I fade towards the top, and that'll be the shadow and highlight. So that'll give this a stronger, more realistic feel. And if you're going for realism, it's really important you pick a light source, a light direction. If you're doing painting and I'm just doing a limited color palette because otherwise I get decision fatigue. And with doing back-to-back drawing challenges every single month, I have to do some in a way that are very relaxed. So this is relaxed in that I'm doing the same paper, I'm doing the same subject matter, I'm using the same mediums, I'm using the same colors. I'm following prompts, which makes it harder because I don't typically follow prompts when I'm doing a year's worth of drawing challenges back to back to back, because the burnout is legitimate and I don't want to burn out. You have to get the trick of all this is to get the right amount of whelm. If you're overwhelmed, you burn out and you can't finish and it's not good. If you're underwhelmed, you're bored and you can't finish and it's not good. So you get the right amount of challenge for you, and then it's a success. And that's what you want. You want this whole thing to be successful. So, yeah. I'm doing perform. And again, some of the prompts on this are really tricky, and so I've had to kind of read into them. Like geode. Geode was a really hard prompt, so I made sure to do a hummingbird that had amethyst in its name. There's like a ruby-throated one. There's a bunch that have really cool like gemstone names, and that's how I'm trying to make this work. I wanted to note that there's like little bits that could have been branches here. So the tree's not going to be a perfect straight line. Nothing in nature is like perfect. You don't want that. Okay. And maybe I'll have a little bit of dark lines throughout to denote like scarring. Sometimes there's scarring on trees where branches have broken or been clipped off. You know, people prune trees and stuff. So sometimes there's storms and it does damage. So this is my my tree thus far. I hope you enjoyed this little introduction as to what I'm working on for World Watercolor Month. I always love watercoloring. I just don't do it enough, and I'm hoping that with this roll of paper, and then I hope to bind a bunch of things for next year, that I include even more watercolor drawing challenges. So if you're interested in a watercolor tutorial of something and you want something more in depth, or you have some questions, you can email me, you can message me down below. You can always message me on Instagram. Like, I'm open to any and all suggestions because I love ideas. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful week, and I will talk to you later. Bye.